Hello, welcome to the Polyglot Files. My name is Michael, and today we're asking the question, what is the oldest language family on Earth? While this question comes with its complications, we are going to look at some of the major contenders and the evidence we have for making them the oldest language families. We may even stumble upon some dead languages along the way. Let's go. Languages are part of families or groups, and like humans, languages evolve over time. That means that languages that are part of the same language family often have a common ancestor if you trace back far enough. For example, English, German, Dutch, and the Scandinavian languages all share common linguistic features, and they are part of the same language family. This is because these languages come from a common ancestor language, Proto-Germanic, that was spoken many years ago. Although really Proto-Germanic was part of another language family that we'll discuss later. So how do we figure out what language family is the oldest? Well, in actuality, determining what language family is the oldest is rather hard. We're instead going to look at attestation and history. That means that today we are going to determine what language family is the oldest based off of its written records, as well as the archaeological evidence that we have tied to the language family and its peoples. Given that we are considering written records when talking about the oldest language family, it is perhaps useful to know what the oldest written record on Earth currently is. In fact, the oldest documented written record that we have is none other than cuneiform for the Sumerian language. Sumerian was spoken in Mesopotamia in ancient Sumer, one of the oldest documented human civilizations, and it dates back to 3200 BCE. That makes the writing sample more than 5,200 years old. Sumerian, however, is a language isolate. This means that there are no known linguistic relations or descendants to Sumerian, and it is not part of any modern language family. How old are the current language families that we have now? Let's start with the Indo-European language family. The Indo-European language family includes many subdivisions, such as the Germanic languages that we spoke about before, the Romance languages, the Slavic languages, the Celtic languages, Greek, and even Indo-Aryan languages like Persian, Hindustani, and Sanskrit. Its ancestor language, called Proto-Indo-European, was spoken by the Indo-Europeans in the Pontic-Caspian steppe in the modern-day Caucasus region. While there are no written records of this Proto-Indo-European language, the ancestor language to all modern Indo-European languages, scholars place the Indo-Europeans in this area around 6,000 years ago. There are, however, some pretty old written samples of ancient Indo-European languages. For example, the extinct Hittite language that was spoken in modern-day Turkey has written samples that date back to 1900 BCE. The oldest written record of a living Indo-European language comes from Greek, and that dates back to 1400 BCE. In fact, if you've ever wanted to study some of the oldest languages in the world, Indo-European languages included, then like linguists and archaeologists, you can't rely on writing samples alone. Immersing yourself in authentic videos and audio really is the best way to learn a language. For that, I recommend FluentU, the sponsor of today's video. With FluentU, I've accessed real-world videos such as music videos, movie trailers, and news clips, and use them as learning materials. I simply choose a video that interests me, and as I watch, the video comes with interactive captions, so I get an instant translation of any word, as well as key grammatical information. I can then turn these words into flashcards for practice later using spaced repetition technology. I particularly like that FluentU has an extension to use with YouTube and Netflix, so I can turn any video into an authentic language learning experience. FluentU currently offers content in English, Spanish, French, Italian, German, Chinese, and many others. Click on the link in the description to get a free trial and a discount to try FluentU today. Remember how I mentioned dead languages? Well, one member of the Afro-Asiatic language family, Ancient Egyptian, while a dead language, has some of the oldest written records on Earth. In fact, the earliest forms of ancient hieroglyphic text can be dated back to 4000 BCE. This then puts the earliest forms of the Afro-Asiatic language family at about 6,000 years ago, which essentially ties it with the Indo-European language family as the oldest language family on Earth. The living members of this language family, however, namely Arabic and Hebrew, have written attestations that are quite a bit younger than ancient Egyptian. Hebrew's written attestation dates back to 1000 BCE, making it just over 3,000 years old, and Arabic's earliest attestation dates back to 500 CE, making it just over 1500 years old. The Sino-Tibetan language family is perhaps best known for the Chinese languages, namely Mandarin Chinese and Cantonese. The ancestor language to this language family, called proto-Sino-Tibetan, can be dated back to 5000 BCE, making it more than 7,000 years old. This would then make proto-Sino-Tibetan older than both proto-Indo-European and proto-Afro-Asiatic. The oldest written attestations of the Sino-Tibetan languages come from Old Chinese, and they date back to 1250 BCE. What would a conversation about the oldest language family on Earth be if we didn't include the Dravidian languages and thus Tamil? The Dravidian language family includes Tamil, and despite many claims online, Tamil has not definitively been proven to be the oldest language on Earth. The oldest written records of Tamil date back to 700 BCE, and its ancestor language, believed to be Proto-Dravidian, was spoken about 4,000 years ago in southern India at around 2000 BCE. There are some theories, however, that say that Proto-Dravidian is actually the language that is being used in the undeciphered Indus Valley text. Though this is unproven, if that is true, then Proto-Dravidian would appear to be older than 4,000 years old. While the following three languages don't have written records that take them very far into the past, I wanted to mention them because they are still in fact pretty old language families. The Niger-Congo languages are spoken in much of Central Africa with over 700 million native speakers. Proto-Niger-Congo, the ancestor language to this language family, is thought to be over 10,000 years old, perhaps spoken as early as 9000 BCE. The Na-Dené language family is a group of indigenous languages spoken in North America. While it has been proposed that the Na-Dené languages and the Sino-Tibetan languages are derived from a common ancestor, it is believed that Proto-Na-Dené was first spoken in North America around 5,000 years ago. The Uralic languages include modern-day Finnish, Hungarian, and Estonian, and though their written records are relatively modern, within the last 1,000 years, it is estimated that Proto-Uralic was spoken more than 7,000 years ago. So while these three language families lack any concrete written evidence, it is accepted that they are in fact very old language families either way. I've saved the best for last, or perhaps the oldest for last. The Khoisan languages are a group of language families that exist in modern-day southeastern Africa, and they may be, in fact, the oldest language families in the world. While this video has looked primarily at written records, the Khoisan languages don't really have any. So if they don't have written records, why do we then believe that they may be some of the oldest language families in the world? Well, this primarily has to do with the linguistic features of the Khoisan languages as well as the histories of the Khoisan peoples. For starters, the Khoisan languages include click consonants, thought to be some of the oldest produced sounds in human language. The Khoisan languages retain these click sounds to the modern day, indicating that they could be very old. Secondly, the Khoisan peoples have been archaeologically proven to be one of the oldest groups of peoples in the world. According to the out of Africa theory, the first modern humans evolved in Eastern Africa, and the Khoisan peoples remain genetically tied to these original modern humans. In fact, it is estimated that the Khoisan peoples have lived in southeastern Africa for more than 150,000 years. It is then estimated that the Khoisan languages have also been spoken in the region for more than 150,000 years. That doesn't mean, however, that the Khoisan languages are identical to the way that they were spoken 150,000 years ago. All languages evolve and change. However, it does appear that the Khoisan languages, assuming that they have been spoken continuously in this region, may be in fact some of the oldest language families on Earth. So, it appears like all conversations about the oldest languages or the oldest language families, we've reached a stalemate. If you look at solely written evidence, we can see that Sumerian, although a language isolate, appears to be the oldest language family. If you're looking at still living language families, then Afro-Asiatic appears to be the oldest language family because of the written records of ancient Egyptian. However, if we look at archaeological evidence, it appears that the Khoisan languages blow every other language family out of the water with an astonishing history that goes back 150,000 years. While no answers are clear, it remains a very interesting topic. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on that little notification bell. It'll tell you whenever I release a video. As usual, thank you for watching the Polyglot Files, and I will see you next time. Goodbye! That was rather Britney-inspired today. Not a good Britney-inspired, but Britney-inspired nonetheless.